emotionally and physically. Our relationship with money is tied actually not just to our wealth, but to our health also. Because when you have a good win, you're going to tell people, come home from work, honey, guess what today was? When you have a loss, we keep it into ourselves oftentimes, and there's shame that comes with it. And even within the trading community, you could talk about it a little bit, but you might not want to be so vulnerable. Because what happens if you're vulnerable? That somebody might not trust you, your judgment, you're not a good trader. All of these things that come into our mind, when really everybody's had lost days.
Just a quick pause before we get into this. Trading can be intense, and staying mindful during your session matters so much. That's why I created and am sharing a free 3-part audio experience that's helped me deeply. 1 for starting your day with calm intention, 1 to stay centered while you trade, and 1 to wind down with grace when it's time to stop. These tracks are yours. Just click the link in the description. Hey, welcome back. Here at the Market Mamas podcast, I cover a wide range of topics from the intricacies of day trading to mindset mastery and psychological growth, with the goal of the conversations being next level growth for all of us. My name is Becky, and I'm a US-based futures day trader from the Pacific Northwest. My trading experience includes trading stocks, options, crypto, and futures, with both trading a personal account as well as with prop funding companies. Over time, I found that I most enjoy the fast-paced world of intraday futures trading, so that is my primary day trading focus now. Thank you for joining me on the Market Mamas podcast today. Hi, welcome back to the Market Mamas podcast today. And you guys know that I am a day trader, and I talk about all of the psychological hurdles that I am working through, and I think traders have to work through in order to really get like the big long-term success in this role, because it's so challenging to push past so many different ways that you can essentially mess it up as a day trader. And so I'm constantly like hunting for any advice or tips or wisdom from people who know more than I do to help me refine in my own like psychological journey so I can continue to stabilize as I achieve next levels in trading. And so to that end, I'm like very excited to have my guest today. This is Erika Wasserman, and she knows a significant amount about the financial psychology element of what we specifically as traders are working through, but humans in general. So Erika, welcome to the show. I can't wait to introduce my audience to you and gain some wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to sit down and have a great conversation with you. You and I have some good energy already going back and forth.
I really respect people who speak the language that I'm trying to like get better with. And I definitely get that vibe from you, both through your back history and then what you actively do. So how did you come to be in this industry? Let's start there.
Great question. It's like when I walk into a cocktail party and everyone's like, what do you do? And I say, well, I'm a certified financial therapist. I get like a puppy dog look. What? What's that? So a little background is growing up in my house, talking about money was normal. I know, right?
It's rare.
But I didn't know that because that was my background.
Yeah.
So like, driving to the grocery store, my dad knew I was good at math. So he'd be like, how many can of beans? 2 cans of beans are on sale for 99 cents back in the day, right? And then, how much is 1 can? And so we just do math at the checkout counter. How much change am I going to get from the cashier? And over time, that was our language that we discussed. And so talking about finances was normal for us. And I didn't know any different. And so when I turned into teenage years, I started trading with my dad. He shut me down, showed me that he invested a couple stocks for me, helped me pick out a couple stocks. And he and I just bonded over it. And so, right, I got so lucky. Cool. And I didn't know. I didn't know at the time. Like most of us on our journey of life, these little moments that shape us. And so I went to University of Florida, got a degree in finance, and then went in consulting. So worked for IBM and lived up to the I'd been moved. So moved 9 times in 12 years with the company. Along the way, moved into an apartment I couldn't afford with a boyfriend in New York City. We ended up getting married and then moving overseas. So I lived in Japan for 2 years, had my first daughter over there. Then moved to China, then moved back to the US, had 2 more kids in rapid fire, like everybody who's very motivated, right? And so I had 3 kids under the age of 4, and then whoosh, ripped out from under me. I got divorced. Surprise. Yes. So now I left consulting, left the marriage, had to restart over. And thankfully, because of those conversations that I had in my teenage years or really growing up with my dad, I was able to ask those questions. I didn't have all the answers, but I was able to ask the questions when I was leaving my job, when I was finding new employment, when I was leaving the marriage, while I was shaping my new relationship. And years later, when my dad did pass away, My mom knew where the binder was, but didn't know what it meant. Well, he and I for years had been talking about this binder. We've been going through it and we knew it. So without even realizing it, my mom became my first financial therapy client. 7 years later, she bought and sold a house this year on her own. And so, yeah, it's just a skill that wasn't part of their relationship. And for me,
She didn't have to manage it because he was so good at it seems like.
right. And a lot of times what I see with couples, and I'm lucky my dad was good at it, but not everybody is. They default to one person. And so when I heard about the term financial therapy, it was like a light bulb moment for me. And I was like, oh my God, this is like when I was laying on my floor, through my divorce period, the baby's crawling all over me thinking, how am I going to get through the day? What am I going to do in my life? And I knew I wanted to help others through tough times. And so when I heard the term financial therapy, it was like, this was it. So I went to Kansas State. There's actual programs in financial therapy. Got a graduate certificate in financial therapy. It's about roughly a year program. And then got certified in the field. I was number 15, and there's a little over 100 now in this growing field. And that's what I just want to do, is help people promote positive conversations about money. We talk about everything. We'll talk about sex. We'll talk about religion, all these taboo topics, right? They're happening on the news. They're happening in your, on your social media, but money is not supposed to happen.
Yeah. That is such an awesome upbringing and story creation of how you got here, because it makes so much sense having a different exposure as a child and thinking that's your normal. That's how you were raised. So that seems like, everyone, when they leave their parents' home for the first time as a teenager, thinks that they had a normal upbringing by and large. And then you realize so many people have such unhealthy relationships and experience with it, because I totally did not grow up with talking about money at all. I didn't understand it. It was something to be feared and to do your best with, and you would be happy to get what you get from your employer. And if you get a retirement plan, then, you got to trust fidelity and be grateful for that too, because it could be all taken away. There's fear and quietness and shame. And it's like, I didn't even know how to take any sort of reins with it initially. And so I absolutely can see why this is a niche that needs to be expanded upon. And it's awesome that you've gone in on the kind of ground level of those, financial consulting, because I can see that probably most Americans need you.
Yes. And I actually have a global practice, because I say money's like
right.
music, right? It might look different or sound slightly different, but it goes across all continents.
Well, and traders too. Like, I think on the podcast, I have had guests from 12 different countries now, and trading itself is international as well. And that just speaks to, it's money, right? It's the money. It's the financial market. It's the ability to move money around, and it's people that get into that. So, that makes total sense that it's a human condition. It's not any sort of nation.
So when you say the word money, I wish I had a dollar bill nearby. Money is a noun. It's a thing. But yet we give it so much emotion.
That's true.
Right? A pen,
yeah.
Right? I'm holding a pen right now. It's a thing.
It's nothing compared to money.
Right. You might have a favorite pen every once in a while, right? But
Not true.
Right?
That's true.
Right. But at the end of the day, it doesn't carry the same weight that money does. And in fact, there was a Harvard study done by Daniel Kahneman that said 90% of financial decisions are emotional. 10% are logical.
That makes sense.
Right. So now you're day trading. So let's talk about that day trade. Those hits of dopamine that are coming at you when the market's going up and going down, and like the excitement or the fear, seesaw, take which one you want.
Both in any given trading session.
Within 5 minutes.
Yeah. There's dopamine and adrenaline in high concentrations coming at you rapid fire, and it flips from positive to negative to greed to fear to hesitation to you count it a win when your trade starts moving your direction. You count that unrealized profit and loss. And then if it starts coming back on you, wait, I was winning, and then instantly, even I'm sitting up in my chair thinking about it, because it's like the emotions and the experience of it heighten so fast that, especially when you're a novice and an early trader, you don't even know what the hell's going on. Like your body is just responding physiologically, and it's coming across in the way that you're clicking your mouse and you're managing your trade. And that's where I think your point about 90% emotional, especially early traders, I think that's absolutely the truth, because you can go into a trade with a plan, but once you're in it and the money starts moving, it's so much more common to manage it emotionally early on until you can figure out that that's a problem, and you have to like stop doing that.
And you just said it right, because you put a plan in place. We'll pick a number, 1999, right? You're going to sell at 1999, but all of a sudden you see it moving, and you get nervous and your emotions take over, and then you do it. Now, here's the thing. If I was trading for you and you told me 1999, I'd wait and click the button, because logically I can have a control. My emotions are not in play the way it is when it's personal to you. Let's talk about we touched on our background, how that shows up in our relationship with money. Let's talk about another one, which is experiences. Day trading. How many times have you got burnt on a pharmaceutical stock? I'll throw that out there. Pick an industry, but
pharma is so highly manipulated. Like the couple trades that I did trade were wild, and I don't trade pharma anymore actually for that reason. So see,
that's exactly it. You just gave my case study. Emotionally, you're like, I don't do pharma. Logically, if your trading partner came to you and said, this is a great deal, here's the numbers and this is what's going to happen,
then could you be objective and recognize that that's still a great opportunity? And it could be something that has absolutely no real correlation to previous rough experiences. But the emotional carryover from that is absolutely still in the back of my mind.
Yeah,
anytime I think
financial
about that
trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we feel the losses more than we feel the wins.
Isn't it statistically at least twice? Isn't it quite like double?
I was going to say something higher, but I didn't have the exact statistic in front of me, so I didn't want to quote. But when you go to sleep at night, on the days that you have a win, right? You end up in the surplus. You go to bed and you maybe a little smile and good job today. And when you have a loss, the face that you're making for people who can't see you, right? It's like,
yeah. It's gut-wrenching. It's like, it's scary. You fear, do I know enough? Should I even be a trader? Is this, depending on the size of the loss and the conditions around it, but there is all of that wrapped up to some degree of, you second guess yourself and your career and why you did that. And if it was just the probabilities game of not every trade will be a winner, or if it's the fact that you made too many errors and you messed up, and what does this mean for the future? And is it going to carry over to tomorrow? And like reliving the trade in your mind, how could I have made this loss less? How could I have done this differently? What about my partner took a winning trade and I took a losing trade, and why is she better than me? XYZ. Like there's so many ways that it spins in your head afterwards, and it's super hard. I think early in my days, there was more than one occasion I would have wine with lunch because it was just too much, and that was a lot to like work through, because that initial experience of big losses as a trader can tear you apart
emotionally and physically. Our relationship with money is tied actually not just to our wealth, but to our health also. Because when you have a good win, you're going to tell people, come home from work, honey, guess what today was? When you have a loss, we keep it into ourselves oftentimes, and there's shame that comes with it. And even within the trading community, you could talk about it a little bit, but you might not want to be so vulnerable. Because what happens if you're vulnerable? That somebody might not trust you, your judgment, you're not a good trader. All of these things that come into our mind, when really everybody's had lost days.
I feel like that is like the heart of why I created this podcast, because it's so much easier to tell no one. It's so much easier to not admit your ugly side, your hard trading day, the way that you revenge traded after a small, reasonable, appropriate loss within your system, but you got mad and you took it out on the market and you were going to get your profits back and you were going to fix it before anyone knew that you did this big error. And then it can get even bigger. And then how do you explain that and still not look like an idiot or whatever? It's terrible. And that emotional weight of it, if someone just keeps carrying that day after day, it's awful. And bad things have happened to traders who've really gotten in a hole and kept it internally. And I have experienced hard days myself, and it's really hard to keep it in. And so, like I said, that is the heart of Market Mamas, because I figured out that not a lot of people were owning that outwardly, what these experiences are like, and that I think that every single day trader experiences them. And if we can kind of normalize the fact that this is a part of the journey of learning how to get good and minimize these really hard days, then I think people will persevere more if it's out in the open and recognize that this is something to work through. I don't know if that's part of
how you work with emotional trauma around money. But I think I have experienced that if I can just take the shame out of it and release it sooner, the carryover is less and the recovery is quicker.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And like you said, I forget what wording you said, but really, it's part of your job. Day trading, you will have losses, right? Like this is normal. And when you start putting that into your vocabulary, that also normalizes things, And so what I want to talk about is, how do you know when enough is enough? How do you set boundaries before the emotions come into play? So working with clients, I'll sit down and say, what is your, bowling? I have 3 kids, you have 3 kids, right? We've gone bowling before. And, the bumpers that go up on the rails. So that way,
Yeah.
you have a better shot at
Especially
getting
gets to something. Yeah.
And not all gutter balls. Okay.
Yeah.
So with your trading, how do you not get gutter balls as often? What will you be your guardrails? What within your day, your month, or your year are your perimeters? And start them off, not on a good day, not on a bad day, drastic, right? Start it off with a level head that you're tapping into that 10% logical, not coming off a huge win to be like, this is going to be my numbers.
And I think a lot of day traders will, once you've figured out your edge and you've gotten a little bit past maybe your first year, you'll figure out that you need to have a trading system and a program and to treat it like a business, right? And so you can create a trade plan of, this much is a reasonable daily win. And if I really start pushing higher numbers, I get into greed and I'll start chasing and it can really mess with me emotionally. But this amount will compound over time, over this many days. It can be, however many couple $1,000s a week potentially. And then on the flip side of that, what is an average daily loss that is sustainable long term? So if I just didn't get my trade right and I took a loss, if it is contained to say $500 only, my account will be fine. And tomorrow I can basically start with a blank slate. I think the issue comes in is when we don't honor those, because like you said, when is enough enough? So if we and are clear headed, on a Saturday, we're reviewing our trade plan and we look at the numbers and logically our daily loss is 500 and our target is between, $5 to $1,000. When you're actually trading and it's on the line, it's so easy to monkey with it. And so I don't know if day trade as well, but a lot of the companies that you can trade with and the institutions that you can execute on will offer traders literal physical barriers to their accounts. You could put in there, shut me out if I lose more than $500 this day. And that's very, very common now that a lot of companies that we will trade with as retail traders for our funding will have this opportunity. The issue is if we take it and we honor it, because, you're the one who sets it, you can monkey with it. So that's a big thing in terms of trader discipline, is like there's actual literal bowling bumper rails that we can put in place, but traders still blow their accounts. And that's because explain to us why that's because we monkey with it in the intraday situations, and we need to not do that. We know we need to not do that. So why do we do that, Erika?
Because we can. Right? If I tinker here and I tinker here, I can outsmart the system. How many people really outsmart the system? And as you're talking about this, the images that I'm getting is a poker player.
Yeah. There's a lot of parallels to poker.
It is a lot of, And what happens when the guy has to pay rent? I'll just go to the casino. I got $500 in my pocket.
They say I'm going to trade. I'm going to play really good hands of poker.
I'll get my $2,000 for rent. I got $500 in my pocket. Let me go. And then they're up to $3,000. And what happens at the end of the day? They leave with nothing. And so the question then is, how do you, monkeying around with the numbers doesn't help the system that you're building.
No.
It's like, I hate the word diet, so that's not the right word. It's like saying you want a healthier lifestyle, but then at night you eat a sleeve of cookies because nobody's watching.
Yes, that's exactly what it's like. That's exactly what it's like, because when you pull your loss limits, that's often a condition that you don't want people to know that you did. It's a poor choice that you regret.
Hidden ice cream,
Yeah. Yeah. The correlation is very strong.
So what do you do before you, or personally, have you moved that loss limit before?
Yeah, I have. And I have regretted it every single time. That's not true. That's the issue, right? So there's times when you pull it because you're like, I took a loss, but now I see the market clearly. So I just need a little bit more risk allowance for today because I can turn this $500 loss into a $500 win with just one really good trade that now is setting up. So that's the psychological mess around that we do of convincing ourselves that we still have the mental capital to execute a good trade with. And here's the trick of it, because half the time you're right and half the time you're wrong. Half the time this trade that you're going to pull your limit and win on works and you go from red to green. And so then that gives you the...
Is it a 50-50 split?
I think it used to not be. And now that I'm a better trader, it probably is. But when I would do it earlier on it was just revengey. So I think, yeah, it's fair. I think it pivots as you learn and grow as a trader, because I now can take an early loss and then take a one or two winning trades. But early on in my career, when I was less good at managing the emotions, an early loss would almost always be preceded by loss.
Right. So let's pause there. So
Yeah.
for beginning traders, novices,
Yeah.
on the earlier side, keep the barrier there. Keep the bumper rails up. You know, they're
So
there
much.
for a reason. And then when you take maybe one side down, right, do it half the time that you want to do it. Keep track of how many of them actually turn around. Because you're like, oh, it's 50-50 now. It might be 25-75.
Yeah, I would agree with you. As early traders and even middle traders, like I am still have inconsistency with my trading. And those barriers are so powerful because I think the whole argument around them is that they force discipline when you're not fully present with the 100% and discipline yourself. You know, if you will say, I cannot fully guarantee that I will stop trading if this situation occurs where I hit this amount of loss, then these barriers are so protective. And so I would definitely agree that if you're early or middle or whatever kind of trader, if this is an option within the platform that you trade with, I think it's so valuable to always leave it in place and just have a system of not monkeying with it, because that's the whole idea of the phrase of seeing the forest through the trees. If you just focus on this one day, this one tree, this situation right around you. But if you really look at the big picture, if you have a small reasonable loss and you come back tomorrow and you have a great trade, you can have a great session then and it makes it no difference. So it's the physical barriers are really powerful when we don't monkey with them.
Yeah. And also the physical, like you just said, the physical barriers. And it might just be get up and walk around your desk. Take a loop around your block. You know, I know time is of the essence, but the flip side is the bigger picture. You might just need a couple minutes to reset so that way you're not revenge trading and you come in with a clearer head with the logical side. So think about this. 90% emotional, 10% logical. How can you quicker tap into the logical piece and remove that emotional piece?
Yeah, I love that idea of walking away for a few minutes and even fresh air if you can get physically outside, because it does help you kind of just pull away from it. And I would argue that if you're stopped out, you do have time to walk away, because in that situation, the price is doing something that you didn't anticipate or you wouldn't have lost that trade. And so in that situation, that's actually the best time to walk away, because you need to let the move that is happening that you didn't anticipate. You need to let it move and let it give you more information if you are going to have any chance of taking another trade. If you have room in your account that is good, you need to let the next bit of information present so you can figure out what the heck is going on. So for multiple reasons, that physical walking away from the candles printing on your chart is really a powerful tool as well.
The other thing is music. Go play a song. Blare whatever music you need and don't do anything for that entire song. So pick a favorite, an upbeat, whatever it is, close your eyes, get up, take that pause. And music also helps with our senses. So that's another fun way. If you can't get outside, you don't want to go for a walk, throw some Metallica on, throw some
right.
get
out of your head.
Get the revenge out. Get it,
Yeah.
Do something that makes you happy for a few minutes.
Yeah, tap into different emotions. Do you have any advice then if you say you're a day trader and you get in a drawdown, meaning you have multiple red days in a row, potentially maybe you didn't blow your account in one day by pulling your barriers, but you had a string of red days and you have to reset and start fresh again? Do you have any tips for that period of reset on how to flip your brain back into the market is abundant and I am a good trader and I can start again because I've gotten there before. I can get back there again. Like in that moment, that's a really challenging period, I think, for traders.
Yeah. And our brain plays tricks on us. The what ifs. Have you ever had a what if day?
Yes. Almost every day.
Right. And what if I never make that money back? What if the sky comes falling down? What if my internet goes out in the middle of a trade? What if, right? All of these what ifs. What percentage of the what ifs actually come true?
Not near as many as we think we do when we're what ifing. I mean, mostly that's unsubstantiated fears.
And that's exactly it. What if you changed it around to the positive? So I'm going to invite you to do that next time. So you just had a bad week. What if I come back like a badass next week?
Mm-hmm.
What if I get it right on Monday?
Yeah.
What if I analyze my losses to make me a better trader for my future self? Those are the what ifs that are going to move you forward.
I think the biggest growth action that I have done in the last year that has really changed my situation is changing losses from like that soft, I did an error, like this red P&L, I will fix it. Transitioning that to this day I missed things on. And so I want to learn the lessons and figure out what I missed so that I can do better in the long run. And so turning a loss day into a lesson day. And that is sort of that similar type of pivot of recognizing it doesn't have to be a bad day. If it was a red P&L, it can be like a lesson that I really needed. And it can bring out conversation with my mentor that is going to like turn on a light bulb moment for me so that I can, come back so much stronger. And when I see this type of setup, this type of day again, I'm going to remember this hard day and handle it better. And so that sort of like mind switch for me, I can't always do it. I'm not 100% consistent with it. But I think that mindset and view of red trades has helped me become better over the long term because I learn from them instead of try and hide them.
Losses are lessons, right? Like I like that mind frame shift. But here's the interesting thing. I keep hearing you say about the lessons and on the down days. Can you learn something from the up days?
Yes, but I think I learned less on the up days because generally it means that my trade plan worked. And so like I've seen the setup where if it will come to this support and it shows me this candle pattern and then I want to take it to this level. And so if I actually execute on my good setup that I have traded many times and it works, I feel like those teach me less. I think they more validate the fact that is a really good setup. And so I want to keep finding that one when I can. But I definitely on the days where I think XYZ is going to happen and I get in for an XYZ trade and it does ABC and get slapped in the face. Those I dig into and I'm like relentless of like, I don't want to be a loser trader. I don't want this day to be a loss. I don't want to have lost this money and had to step back in my account. So what the hell did I miss? So I think for me, at least, I learned a lot more on the bloody days.
Yeah. And listen, you're not alone. That's in life in general too, right? The hard days is when we learn a lot of our lessons that's where the growth happens. Growth happens when we're uncomfortable and we're uncomfortable generally with a loss. We're really comfortable and feels good when we're winning.
Yep.
But at the same time, because this is data analytics that you're looking at, take the win, look at it, analyze it. Because again, repeat the positive things. You might see some trends that, I could take this to the next level too. And that could grow you as a trader as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, there's always ways to refine great trades. I mean, you could get a slightly better entry if you adjusted the way you got into the trade. And like you said, if it is your best setup, maybe next time you take it with one more contract and you take it a little bit farther. And yeah, we can learn from all of it.
Yeah. My point is I don't want to just focus on the negative because in trading, positive and negatives are simultaneously sometimes, right? Yeah, you really need emotional stability when you're day trading or a trader at all, and because it's the bigger picture, but every day is a roller coaster ride. And so you generally don't have that calm day, that flat ride.
Not really. If you make money, like that's a good feeling. You feel like you accomplish your business and your account is growing and like you nailed it. And now the trick for me, I think sometimes is not feeling anxiety coming into a trading session of like, if I'm on a win streak, I want to keep this win streak going. And so I need to like I need to win today because I'm on this winning streak. Or, on the flip side of that, if I just had a losing day, I need to come back strong today because I don't want 2 red days in a row. And so for me, I think that's part of my daily struggle is like quieting the potential anxiety that I could feel coming into a trading session so that I can just focus on finding and executing on my best setup. But I would say that's always a struggle, whether I'm green or red the previous day.
Yeah. So do you have a routine before you start your trading?
Yes. And I've gotten better with that. I do have actual audio tracks that I wrote myself and listen to that remind me about abundance and gratitude and patience and focus. And yeah, that's actually part of how Market Mamas was born too, is I would nerd out with like writing things I want to remember, and I would record them and put them in my AirPods, and it would help me stay grounded and centered pre-market. And while I'm trading, I have different ones that remind me of different things. But I will do that pre-market audio track of like who I want to be and how I want to show up. And then I create my trade plan. I write out the trades that I think could happen based on where the market is looking like. And then I try to do some deep breathing meditation. And most days I do all of that. Some days I have to rush based on whatever's going on in my morning. But when I do that pre-market routine to kind of center myself, it's better.
Yeah. And I think that's important. And I love that you have breaks within the day too, because your mood swings are going to change throughout the day, depending on the market, depending on how hungry you are, right? When we were talking about kids and my phone blows up all day long with the kids needing something and like you're getting distracted. And so to have a way to refocus is really important, and to stay to that plan and not let the emotions come up and down so easily, which is so easy to do for everybody. So if it's, putting your feet on the ground, planting them, feeling strong, power posing, but again, even just grounding your feet in that moment before you start the day and just say, I am a wealthy woman. I am a wealthy man, right? And wealth isn't the day trades that you're having. Wealth is your life. Wealth is your knowledge, your family, your community, your health. And before you start that day, you're already winning with wealth.
I love that. It's like gratitude and abundance all rolled into one. And I forget about the power pose because I have read about that from different things too. And I have tried it and I love it. I love it, like in front of a mirror or even not, just like standing so tall and sometimes hands on your hips like a superhero. I don't know.
Or the big V, throw them up, just take up space. Take up space. That's what that's for. And I teach my kids that. They used to laugh at me when they were little, but I'm like, before a test, man spread, throw it out, like take up space, because this is your space. You are going to own it,
And there's a confidence to that. And it doesn't have to be any sort of ego, but just a confidence of the fact that if you are strong enough to get your ass up in the morning and write out your trade plan and have confidence to enter a day trading market, like you're amazing. Like you are doing great things. You're pushing yourself into a field that is very challenging. And so to believe in yourself and to cultivate that like faith in what you're doing over the long term, and like that your life, like you said, is abundant and beautiful for multiple factors, regardless of what your day is going to bring. Like that's such a better energy to approach any trade day or anything, I guess.
How do you build community in the trading world? And I'll give you a great example. During COVID, I was walking around my neighborhood and ran into a neighbor, and he said, "Oh, I'm day trading." He lost his job. And I'm like, "Oh, that's great." And I walked away and I'm thinking, oh, yeah. Like, good luck to you. You don't have a finance background. You're listening to the news after market, I was just a little confused. Needless to say, he's no longer day trading. Because as a novice or starting out, where do you find community where you're not just sitting in a basement, typing away in a computer?
Yeah, it's very hard. And I think so many traders do burn out because they don't get a good mentor and a good community in their corner early in the career to be able to figure out how to not drown in the losses and give up. Because it's not secure. For a long time, trading is not a secure means. And if anything, it's a loss. And so, yeah, I think in trading, thank goodness in the last, probably since around COVID, when he was one of billions, I would wager, that started retail trading around that time, because COVID was causing huge swings. People lost their jobs. People were moved home and remote. And so then they could be at their computers more. And then there was some financial chaos, such as the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency blowing up and the GME squeeze. And so there was a huge influx of traders around then. And some things came out of that were positive, though. Prop funding companies got really big around that time, which is actually a really great opportunity for funding. But then trading communities popped up. And so there is now lots of different discords and groups that you can find. I think the key with it, though, is finding the quality ones, because there's so much noise out there. And some of them, many of them, will create much greater FOMO and urge revenge, more noise that will honestly keep you trading all day, which is dangerous for giving back morning profits or just deepening a loss. And so I think now there is a lot of communities you can find via YouTubes, and then there are links within there, or just advertisements. Once you start getting into the trading world, then you'll start to stumble on them. I mean, I'm a member of several, and I recognize when it's good people, good energy, good vibe. They encourage good trading habits. They're with prop firms that have the protections in place. But there's so much noise. So I would say, I mean, I think a lot of people are breaking into those online communities, but be careful, because if they're making you trade more and trade revengey, and there's like shit talking amongst the members that's making you feel some kind of way, they're a problem. They're not a support.
But it's interesting what you have shared over this course of the conversation. You have a mentor, you have a community, because when you do things in isolation, it goes back to that shame and judgment and pushing it away in a dark bed, back to the basement, right? Pushing into that dark corner when you're doing it alone. So I love that not only you have the mentor and the trading partner, and then took it to the podcast to build a community to say, hey, let's talk about these things. So that's just as important for your mental health as it is for your financial health, is to have people that you could go to that are smarter than you, that have been in it longer, that are in the right rooms, that can help guide you through these conversations, because you don't want to do this alone.
It's dangerous to do it alone. I mean, I don't know that I've ever said it on podcast, but I know of a loss of a life of someone who got very deep into upside down in trading, and the toll that it can take on you with depression, anxiety, fear, shame, isolation, loss of relationships because of the financial toll and the stress toll, and the way that people maybe don't cope with their stress in a healthy way. Like it's dangerous to trade in isolation for a number of reasons that go way beyond the financial impact. And so, yeah, I honestly think the only reason I have gotten the success, not the only reason, but a big part of the factor of why I've gotten to the successful point that I have, which is still, I have much more room to grow, but it's because of the choosing to have the right people around me, and then talking to them, letting them in, letting them know when I had a hard day. And there's I think traders will get this if they've done it, but if you are carrying a heavy loss and you're so upset, just the act of telling a safe person that understands trading cuts it by 50% easily.
Right. You release
because
it.
you
It's
like
poof, like
yeah.
the pin in the balloon, just it releases. So how do you know when to get out of day trading? When is it your time to say, this was a good career, this was a good X? It's not like you could retire at 65, or, there's somebody knocking on your door to say, congratulations, you've been promoted to the next level, or there's your exit. How do people know when it's time that this is not for them?
That's a great question, because it is completely self-driven, right? I mean, there's no boss. You're your own boss. You're alone at your device that you're trading on. And so there's if you're legitimately out of money and you can't afford to have the leverage anymore, then that is, I guess, a physical stop. But I think it's a hard conversation to have with yourself and maybe your closest person. But if you just really can't get a sustainable system, there's got to be a limit. It's like a daily loss limit where you've lost so much in a day and you need to stop because you're no longer able to respond appropriately. I think there's a macro loss in terms of, like, you just never can turn it around and see wins or identify a clear strategy. But I think that's individual per person. And I've never been able to quit or walk away.
By the way, it's interesting. You went to the negative.
Yeah.
How do you know when to quit?
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
On the top end.
You didn't ask. Oh, sky's the limit. That's hard because...
Is it? Again, we're back into the poker player where I need to pay rent.
Ooh, you ask good questions.
Yes, I do this for a living.
Yeah. It's like you're from this industry or something. Yeah, no, I think.
And I'll give you an example. I worked with a client, he was a trader, and, I said, how much is enough? And he said, I don't know. And we said, will you read? He goes, 50 million. I said, okay, 50 million. And he goes, but then I'm going to meet a guy who has a bigger boat and a bigger house and a nicer country club. And then I'm going to want 100 million. And then I want 150 million. And then I want to be a billionaire, right? The goal keeps moving. And so when are you happy?
Gosh, that is a human issue because I could see too, the goalposts would keep moving. I mean, right now, when I started, as maybe the mom vibe of me, of this was going to be like a part-time hobby when I was off work for a back injury, like if I can make $200 a day, that's amazing. That's $200 for just sitting in my office. And now I'm so unsatisfied with $200, even when it's copied to multiple accounts and is actually like $1,200. I'm like, I'm usually in the higher range than that. It's like it already has been migrating. And so I foresee that actually is something that I'll have to continue to work through because, as you get a little bit better, as you figure out how to work the system and adjust your leverage and what have you, I don't even know. Because now, initially, I just wanted to have a little extra cushion in our finances and fund an extra trip or two. And now I'm like, I want a bigger, longer trip. And at some point, we're going to need this new car because this car is getting older. And so it's, do I have to cross that bridge yet?
Well, I'd love to be like, no, but you do it when you're level-headed. Because if you don't set a goal, then the goal is moving forever.
Plus, do you think that there's a factor of like not being satisfied is going to, I guess you do want to stay hungry, but like if you could never be satisfied, that's not really a peaceful existence either, right?
Well, no, because that's your ego that comes out, right? So 50 million is enough. That's your ego. You have all your basic needs met. You have your nice home, your private school, your vacations, right? I mean, that's the scorecard in your society that you're worried about on the outside. But as you're trading, again, it's adrenaline all the time, all the time, all the time. So knowing your enoughs, very quick to know when your enoughs at your bottom, but what's your enoughs on your top?
That's tricky. Yeah. Because I honestly, every time I have like a bigger day, then it becomes the new ceiling, the new level. And then it's like,
right, your 50 million becomes 100 million, or 100 million becomes 150 million, right? And so it constantly is moving.
Yeah. True story.
Where it's my 5-year goal is X. At 50 years old, I want to be at Y or before.
Yeah. I think probably we ought to like keep it level and then honor it and respect it and like let it not be this huge thing. And I think part of that is like, I try to like you had mentioned earlier, have an abundance view of my whole life. And so make it not all about the P&L, which makes me feel so much better. Like when I can have really powerful emotional moments with my children, that feels like a big win for me. Like if I can get them to open up to me and I can help them work through something that is a big deal in their life, like that is a big win for me, similar to what a big trade win would be, because there are different avenues of my life that I am seeking to be successful at. A big one of them for me is the way that I'm raising my boys, because I think there could stand to be more really great men in this world. And I'm a mom of 3 boys who has, I think I have an opportunity to create 3 great men. And so that is a huge goal of mine in this life. And so I think, I don't know, spreading out what brings me joy and satisfaction helps me be more satisfied on the charts, because that doesn't have to be the only way that I'm winning in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not your sole source. And that's important too. And so if you are a trader, and we talked about isolation, have that community outside of trading. So find friends outside the trading world to go play tennis with, to do golf, to, go for a walk, whatever it is. So that way you're getting more of a balanced view of life. If you put everything into one area and it doesn't go well, it doesn't feel good.
What is your thoughts on self-sabotage, because I think that overconfidence is an issue in trading, and that goes in with the ego thing. And I think that, if we there's some research out there about money and having like a money thermostat or however you want to label it, of like, I'm used to this much money and a little bit of debt. And so if you actually start breaking those boundaries, those barriers in your life where you thought was a ceiling, then there's a risk of self-sabotaging and pulling yourself back into where you've been comfortable. And I have experienced that myself as I have had bits of more success where I'm trying to push myself. I've had issues with this. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on how we could better, like, I don't know, be able to push those barriers successfully.
Yeah, it's real. It's real. I mean, and we all have it. Most of us have it in any type of career that we have, in personal relationships that we have. It's real. And so the fact of acknowledging it is the first step, and taking a step back to say, am I the problem here? Am I limiting the beliefs of what's in front of me? And if I am, what resources do I need to remove those beliefs? Is it working with a financial therapist? Is it working with a regular therapist? Is it, going for a run and clearing my head and doing a vision board when I get home, or, drawing, whatever it is that you need a creative release for to remove that blockage. But self-sabotage is part of the what ifs in the world too. And so often that's where they show up. What if I'm not good enough? What if, and again, the what ifs don't come true, rarely come true.
But I think that I know a lot of women who experience this, where we aren't as comfortable making bigger numbers comparatively to other groups that we're part of. And so we are quicker to accept smaller wins where potentially, like, we had like a killer trade and we sold it short because we got nervous and this is enough. And instead of having full confidence in the setup and holding it to the highest target that, based on your statistical analysis of the setup, can get there, I think, sometimes there's more hesitancy and not fully embracing all of the things that you can do and holding yourself down. And it's not necessarily women specific, but I think that is something that I have also had to work through.
It is gender specific. And I'll give you some examples. You're raising boys. I'm raising girls. Today's day and age is a little bit different, but when we were growing up in particular, put your cap on for that, is you're at the playground. The boy jumps off the top of the slide. Go for it. You're great. The girl, come down a little lower.
Yeah.
Don't take as big of risk. You might get hurt. And oftentimes we'll let the boys climb to the top of the climbing wall and climb over the climbing wall. And people don't stop them as quickly as they stop a little girl. And so what happens over time is boys are just used to taking bigger risks, trying out for the basketball team more often, going for the win that girls had. Now, things have changed a lot, and they still have a lot of room to grow. And listen, I always say, when my mom got her first job, graduated from college, she couldn't even open up a bank account on her own.
Yeah, it definitely has changed, and there needs to be more growth, because men and women, we have slightly different biology and hormones, which is a factor, but it doesn't have to be as inhibitive as psychologically it can be.
Right. And again, they've just been practicing it more, taking bigger risks.
We practice. Exactly. That's a great way of phrasing it, of like, they have more practice in that sort of energy. And women, especially women who grew up when we grew up, like, not as much practice.
Right. It's a little bit more protective. You stay inside. He can go outside and play. And so that's what it is. It's practice. So as you were saying, the beginning of your trades, you've been practicing over the years and have taken on more risks, jumping from higher buildings, doing that thing. So like anything that you want to get good at, any hobby, any career, it's practice, it's repetition, it's doing it, and it's getting the right team around you to help support you, so that when you do fall, because you will, and there'll be a broken bone, and there'll be, a bad trade day and all these other things, that you have the right team in place to pick you up, to keep you going.
Yeah, I love that. It's like, you can build, if you really want to be a professional day trader, I think you have to build and structure your life around that. And like you said, have supportive people that you call every day potentially, and that know the inner workings of your trade system and know when you're following your rules or when you're not. And if you're not, maybe they want to reach out and be like, what's up? Is something going on externally that's influencing you? Or how are you managing with this like slight issue? And so you can build your life and structure your world around what is supportive for this career, having breaks for physical activity. And like you said, you even mentioned earlier about like, do you need to eat? I feel like if I'm in a trading trance where I am over trading and I'm fighting with the market a little bit, oftentimes it is deep into the day and I've eaten nothing but coffee and water, ingested nothing. And so you have to start putting all kinds of practices in place that allow you to be your best self, because it is a high risk, high emotional career path that it's important to take it seriously and protect that psychologically.
In my book, Conversations with Your Financial Therapist, I do a money mindset framework. And I want to do the two on the bookends. M for money is make the conversations comfortable. Time of day, tone, temperature, food. So we have less decision fatigue in the morning. So trading in the morning is going to feel different than trading in the afternoon. If you're hungry, if you're cold, you're going to feel different. So making sure you set yourself up correctly in the beginning by making those conversations comfortable. And again, if you're reaching out to an accountability partner, a mentor, make sure you do the same thing. Give yourself the same consideration. And the why on the end is say yes to compassion.
I think traders are not great at that, to be compassionate to yourself through the whole journey of it.
Yes. So roller coaster ride, which is day trading, right? Up, down, loop, da, 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 da. You need to have the ability to take a step back and evaluate the entire ride, not a certain piece of the day or the week of the month.
And I think give yourself credit for what you're doing, because day trading really is very hard. Like it really has been a lot to learn. And I think that there's a lot of hard careers, but trading really, there's a lot of technical analysis you have to learn. Sure, you have to create a literal technical edge and a trade entry system, but then the psychological work is just massive. Like you have to really totally rewire your brain for the truest success in this industry. I think very few people are born to be able to be successful traders. And I think that, to your point of compassion, I think it's worth respecting yourself and being so proud of just however long you've made it in this game. If you're able to like mostly hold steady and have less hard days, like that's a big growth pattern that, you should have some pride in and love on yourself a little bit over. I don't know that enough people do.
No, and also when you get into day trading, you're thinking about the numbers. You're not thinking about the emotional cost of this role in your life. And like, as you said, I will go back to the 90-10, right? 90% of it's probably emotional and 10% is analyzing all the numbers and preparing for the day. And so as you go into your trading life, understand that there is going to be those fluctuations. So let's sum it up, right? Let's put the bumpers on it, put the boundaries in place of what's going to work for you. Set yourself up for success, and success on days that don't feel successful. How can you tie it into a bow no matter what?
Yeah. I think this conversation has been really powerful because it really does highlight that there's a lot of work you have to do on your brain around the money mindset that plays a huge role in trading. And I did mention that I have a mentor, and he is incredible for both the psychological and the technical analysis. But if people don't have mentors, I think it's really valuable to figure out someone who knows more than you do and to work this out with them, whether it's a financial mentor or a trading mentor or both, or a psychologist, depending on what sort of like baggage you're bringing into this role that you want to work through. There's a lot of rationale for how that can really be pivotal for traders.
Yeah, absolutely. And also follow your podcast, because it seems like you've built an amazing community to keep the conversations going.
Thanks. I think that is the heart of it, because I think these honest, authentic conversations normalize what people are going through, which I think is required for longevity in this game, is like recognizing that these hard days are a part of it and to keep going. So thank you for saying that, because it's the reason we're here.
Yeah.
Well, Erika, I really, really appreciate your time today. And we're going to put in the resource how people can find you, because you are an available opportunity as a mentor for people as well if they need to work through these types of issues. And I think everyone has a different different levels of baggage that they have, or that they are in different phases of working through it. And so sometimes you just need a little bit of help to push you over into consistency with managing all of that. So we'll definitely put your information in there. And then what was your book again?
Yeah, it's called Conversations with Your Financial Therapist. So stories and scripts to grow your mindset. And I had a great conversation backstage with Barbara Corcoran at an event that I was speaking at. And she endorsed the book. Talk about a woman who knows the power of having financial conversation. So I was honored that she put her name behind my book as well.
Nice. Yeah. What a great resource that we can dig into and start working on this more too. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it was great. All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here with Market Mamas. And then if you don't mind, like and subscribe, because it does help the podcast. It helps me kind of keep going with it and bring resources like Erika out today and moving forward. So thanks you everyone, and have a great trading day and weekend. Bye.